Beyond the obvious, why we need to think outside the box. The phrase, "think outside the box," is one we hear often. It's a popular piece of advice given to students, artists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. But what does it truly mean? Simply put, it's about looking at a problem from a new and different perspective, moving past the common or expected solutions to find a more innovative one. It's about challenging assumptions and being brave enough to try something new. In a world that is constantly changing, the ability to think creatively is more important than ever. The old ways of doing things aren't always the best ways, and sometimes the most effective solution isn't the most obvious one. This kind of thinking allows us to discover new opportunities, overcome difficult challenges, and drive progress. The origins of a simple phrase. The concept of thinking outside the box can be traced back to a classic puzzle. Imagine a grid of 9 dots arranged in 3 rows of 3. The challenge is to connect all 9 dots using only 4 straight lines without lifting your pencil from the paper. Most people who try to solve this puzzle fail at first because they limit their lines to the imaginary square formed by the dots. They try to stay inside the box. The key to solving it is to extend your lines beyond this imaginary boundary. Once you allow yourself to go outside the box, the solution becomes clear. This simple puzzle perfectly illustrates the need to ignore self-imposed rules and look for solutions in unexpected places. Why our brains tend to stay inside the box. So, if thinking outside the box is so beneficial, why don't we do it all the time? Our brains are wired for efficiency. They love patterns and routines because they save energy. This is why we develop habits from how we get ready in the morning to how we approach our work. These mental shortcuts, or heuristics, help us make quick decisions without having to rethink everything from scratch. However, these same shortcuts can become a barrier to creativity. When we face a problem, our minds naturally go to the solutions that have worked before. We get stuck in a rut. This phenomenon is known as functional fixedness, where we only see an object or a concept in its most traditional use. For example, if you need to hammer a nail but don't have a hammer, your mind might get stuck. But someone thinking outside the box might realize a heavy shoe or a rock can do the job just as well. Practical ways to start thinking creatively. Thinking outside the box isn't a magical talent. It's a skill that can be developed with practice. Here are a few practical techniques you can try. Change your environment. If you're struggling with a problem, try moving to a different room or working in a cafe. A new physical space can lead to a new mental space. Ask why not. Instead of thinking, that won't work, try asking, what if we did this differently? Or why not try this? Questioning the established way of doing things is the first step toward finding a better way. Embrace constraints. This might seem counterintuitive, but sometimes having limitations can spark creativity. If you have unlimited resources, it can be hard to focus. But if you're told you can only use 3 specific items to solve a problem, you are forced to be inventive. Connect unrelated ideas. Take 2 completely different concepts. For example, a bicycle and a kitchen appliance. How could they be combined? This kind of mental exercise forces your brain to build new connections, which can lead to surprisingly original ideas. Collaborate and listen. Talk to people with different backgrounds and experiences. Someone in marketing might have a completely different perspective on an engineering problem, and their fresh eyes might spot something you missed. Famous examples of thinking outside the box. History is full of stories about people who achieved great things by refusing to follow the crowd. The Ford assembly line. Before Henry Ford, cars were built by a small team of skilled workers, which was a slow and expensive process. Ford's idea was to introduce the assembly line, a concept borrowed from meatpacking plants. This innovation, which seemed strange at the time, completely revolutionized manufacturing and made cars affordable for millions. The iPod. When Apple first entered the digital music market, there were already several MP3 players available. Most were small, clunky, and had limited storage. Instead of just trying to make a slightly better player, Steve Jobs and his team focused on the entire user experience. They created a sleek device with a simple interface that could hold thousands of songs, and they combined it with the iTunes Store, making it easy to buy music. The iPod wasn't just a product, it was an entire ecosystem. The Post-it note. This famous example is a perfect case of an invention that came from a mistake. A scientist at 3M, Dr. Spencer Silver, created a weak, reusable adhesive while trying to make a super strong glue. For years, the company didn't know what to do with it. It was another scientist, Art Fry, who finally had the idea to use the adhesive to create bookmarks that wouldn't fall out of his hymnal. The weak glue became the most useful part of a new product, the Post-it note. These examples show that thinking outside the box isn't about wild, impossible ideas. It's about looking at an existing problem with fresh eyes and being open to solutions that may not fit into the usual categories. The power of not knowing. Finally, one of the most powerful tools for thinking outside the box is the willingness to admit you don't have all the answers. The desire to appear knowledgeable can make us stick to what we know, even if it's not working. Creative thinkers are not afraid to say, "I don't know, but let's find out." They are curious, they ask a lot of questions, and they see every challenge not as a dead end, but as an invitation to explore. By consciously challenging our assumptions and embracing new ways of seeing the world, we can free ourselves from old limitations. Thinking outside the box isn't just about solving puzzles, it's about personal growth, professional success, and making a real difference in the world. It's about becoming more adaptable, more innovative, and more capable of creating a better future. Thank you for watching. Take care!